I want to see this regime fall. I am incredibly pessimistic about what I think it would take to ever get the U.S. to go back to war with the Islamic Republic. I think the only way the U.S. is going back to war with the Islamic Republic is it would have to be stupidly, painfully obvious that we got no fucking choice but to go to, they're not going to leave. I think the only way we're going back to war with the Islamic Republic is if we have a scenario where they've about to achieve a nuke, they've achieved nuke and have already started attempting to use a nuclear weapon somewhere, or they will not stop throwing missiles at U.S. assets or throwing missiles outside of the Middle East until we basically do something until we agree to do something remove all our bases out of the Middle East. We can't get them to make an agreement for money, or even taking all sanctions, including allowing them nuclear proliferation. We can't make any such deal with them to get them to stop basically bombing, a U.S. asset, or bombing Europe or something like that. I literally think that's what it would take. So given that that's kind of my thought process, I'm thinking maybe it would actually be a good thing if they had an intercontinental missile, because I think I know you're please don't yell at me. I'm coming from a point of view of, I think it's going to take something very extreme to get us back to war. And I think that is probably the absolute less horrifically thing that would still be extreme enough to get us back to war. So please don't yell at me, because it's not like I want Europe bombed or some crazy shit. I'm just thinking I think something horrible is going to happen.
When did we ever yell at you? When did we ever yell at you? Did we, Samantha, have I ever, a single time have I yelled at you for this to be the second time?
I have PTSD. I appreciate Armin very much for being so nice.
Okay, I mean, not only I would not yell at you, anybody here yelling at you, will be stopped immediately. Okay.
All right. I'm not only not going to yell, I'm going to agree. Oh. But I'm going to change the parameters. It doesn't have to be a nuclear weapon. These guys could have biological weapons that we detect, and we're like, oh, I guess we got to go back in. These guys could have all kinds of weapons that we don't know about that could lead us to go back in. We already saw them use cluster bombs. So if they set off a cluster bomb, that would force us to go back in. Yeah, we would. There are things. I'm not going to agree that we should hope that they have, for acceleration. That's basically accelerationism, where you say, yeah, sure, let Mandami take New York. Maybe that'll flip him red once he gets done with them. That's a classic technique known as accelerationism. Let him go really, really bad, so bad that, let's say all South America is turning red. Why? Because they went so blue that they were like, no, we're not doing this. I get that. I wouldn't want that on ballistic missiles. But from a pure pragmatist perspective, I understand that we may be stalling them for those 2 months until they force us. And can they force us within those 2 months? Can they do it? Yes, they can do it. And I think cluster munitions would probably do it. And any bio anything would do it. Also, if they just, let's talk about the nuclear thing. If they get it from Pakistan, if they get it from somewhere else, that would also do it. So are there red lines that would force us to cross? Yes. Maybe we would wait more until we hit one of those red lines. So I'm gonna give Sam a little credit here on a strategic level that there is a point there. And this is a more thoughtful perspective. This isn't a gut emotional reaction. She had to think about it. I'd like to support that. I like to credit that. I'd like to give her flowers when they're there.
See, Sketch, Sam, you were expecting people to yell at you. You got a military person to agree with you. See, you got the opposite of what you were expecting.
All right. Next to comment on this, I have Noah. Go ahead, Noah.
Okay, that's better. I also will agree, and I'm not going to yell either, because I also found out recently.
Are you capable of yelling, Noah?
I am capable of yelling.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm kind of imagining.
I
Okay.
can yell right now. No, I'm not gonna yell. But to be all serious, real quick before I get to my point, I also just got diagnosed with PTSD from being bullied as a kid. So I also will not yell. So, but it's, I'm okay and I'm dealing with it, but
All right. Let's go.
um
Let's go to
I'll get to
the
my point.
topic. Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah. But to my point, I also want us to go back to war, but I also know the reasons what Jeffrey has said is because of our munition problems and stuff. So I hope that gets resolved really quickly so that we can start back to boom booms.
Okay.
All right. Next on this topic, we have Jose.
Samantha, no yells from me. I happen to agree with you, and I hope it's an intercontinental ballistic missile and not a nuclear weapon, because we know what their mentality is. Israel will get nuked, and then Israel will respond with their nukes. It's how business is done. If you attack with a weapon of mass destruction, Israel will return the favor. So I'm hoping it's an intercontinental. I hope they make a mistake of shooting it over Turkey. I hope they make that kind of mistake. Better chance actually going to hit land if they shoot it over Turkey than shoot it over Iraq and the rest and send it toward the Mediterranean. Good point, Carl. Good point. I'm proud of you.
All right. Next up to touch on this topic, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think she meant me. I'm not going to yell at you, Sam. That was actually a very good question. Like, I'm actually right proud of you that you asked that question. So, and it's like it cuts to the core of the issue regarding the threats posed by the Mullah regime, now regime remnants. So it's true, like having a ballistic missile, like what would it need to have impetus for the United States to go back to military operations? Having ballistic or demonstrating a ballistic missile capability, particularly if they had WMD capability, would definitely goose us. Here's the challenge. So in the 12-day war, we burned through 27% of our THAAD interceptors in 11 days. In the 15-day Operation Epic Fury, we burned through 67 additional percent of our THAADs and about 50-something percent of our Patriot 3s and a little over 50-something percent of our SM-3 interceptors, which is our sea-based mid-course leg of our overall global missile defensive architecture, right? That's like serious shit. So I agree we need to go back to military campaigns because of the munitions that we spended and we had to expend them. A lot of our critical munitions we spent more than we should have because certain elements out of Western NATO allies fucked us, right? They didn't let us use our heavy bombers. Any strike package that would go forward would almost, and this is what 5x5 was about, and it still is. I just pushed it up the chain again. Is very much munitions over target, right? So we don't want to use long range strike munitions that take forever to build, and we're building that out. We're using general purpose bombs with GPS guided munitions so that they're very accurate. We have hundreds of thousands of them, and we can get that all done. That said, because we burned through the interceptors the way we did, if we do, it's got to be one that's going to like really suppress the Mullah regime's capability, which is why you'd have to have all those bombers hit their targets all at once. So they're all coalescing time over target at once. And the global bed down strategy to do that's not an easy lift. We could do it. It would be like you can't put all the bombers in Diego Garcia, right? The island's only so big. And if we're not being allowed to use our bases out of Europe, or if we have some assholes like Starmer as his last fuck you on his way out, tips off the Mullah regime or whatever, we may not do that. So we have to find alternative means to base them. That's the bed down strategy, like where you're going to base your bombers, load them up, fuel them, so they all kind of take off and all hit their targets where they got to, at the same time and all that. There's that. Here's the issue. Again, outside of that issue, you don't know when the Mullah regime has that capability, right? We didn't know if they had the range that they had when they fired at Diego Garcia, right? They lied. And or they, being the Mullah regime and or regime remnants, lied about the capability. Go figure, they're bad guys. If they have nuclear weapons, they would almost assuredly use it. Like ICBMs are a delivery system, they're not a weapon in and of itself. And biological war weapons, you wouldn't even know they had them. That's what makes them so goddamn dangerous. So where does it leave us? I definitely agree with Samantha that we should definitely go back to military operations. It has to be comprehensive, or you're just going to kill the regime dead, period. You take out every tank, every APC, every towed and self-propelled artillery piece, every helicopter, every IRGC and besieged headquarters down to the, I can't pronounce the fucking, I just can't get that thing to come out of my mouth, Armin. The neighborhood HQ, right, all the way down. All the leadership down to lieutenants, everything in the strait, all gone. We could do it. That can be done. It'll be a very heavy lift, because we're going to have to base things outside of Europe because sure, not everybody in Europe fucked us. Not everybody in NATO. I also want to dovetail this into something else that's kind of crucial regarding this. This is why you cannot wait till crises like present themselves for you to do the investment you need in things like strategic missile defense. There's a reason guys like me pushed very hard for direct energy based strategic defense, right? And that President Trump is doing that with Golden Dome and all this other stuff, because direct energy based defenses, that you don't have to worry about your, cost production exchange ratio because all you need is electricity. And there's definitely ways to do it, right? We had the ABL. I actually knew General Dunn. I knew him and Dean Gallucci and fucking Madam Not Too Bright. And the General Dunn, who was the head of the ABL program, which was a kind of a multi-megawatt open cycle coil chemical pump laser on a 747. It actually worked. There's some other logistical issues why they didn't go forward with it because, open cycle, I don't want to belabor the point. The concept is very much valid. So, we should be doing things like that so we don't get into this problem again. Either way, I very much agree. That was a very good question and observation, Smith. I'm actually right proud of you. Well done.
All right. I would like to say that this reminds me of the first time I ever saw Jeffrey. It's a wonderful day. And I'll never forget the first time I saw Jeffrey. It's not because he's handsome, though he is. It's because I was desperately typing in chat that to show him the people on the streets on the vehicles wearing mop suits, because he had an assessment, but I think he hadn't at that time seen the videos of them wearing mop suits, and they had some kind of like weird delivery vehicles. And I was desperate in the chat. He knows his stuff. If you show him the mop suits, he will understand that this is not normal. This is not just we're spreading tear gas. You don't use this shit for tear gas, right? I knew it in my heart, but I'm like, oh my God, this guy knows his stuff. If I could just get that. And eventually Armin and Goldie, I think they were both on that day. You showed it to him and he said, no, that's okay. There's something else going on here. So if we just look by things that they deployed during the first massacre, well, the latest massacre, we know that there are possibility that they do have these things and they do deploy them. I don't know what concentration. I don't know what type. It could be bio, it could be chemical. It did seem chemical. And I would, it does give me pause. It doesn't just have to be nuclear. There could be other things that accelerate this. And, it's just good to remember first time I saw Jeffrey, I love this guy. Okay, enough of that. Next to respond to this, we have Wyatt.
How you doing, Samantha? You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we do. Like with the way we do it is that we can't. If she gives it because we don't want to do mic over mic. So if she can hear you, she gave you a thumbs up.
Okay, I didn't see that. I just wanted to apologize to you. You know, I called you stupid and evil for being a Maoist. And the reason I kind of rag on you a lot of times is I was involved in some pretty fucked up shit. And, political cults, and for like 31 years of my life. And a lot of times when you talk, I see myself. And if you ever want to talk to somebody to get out of all this cult shit, like maybe call me up or something, or we can chat. Because I was involved in more fucked up shit than you were. Well, that's just it. Like I said, if you ever want to talk, that's it.
No, that's fine.
All right. Um, Seeing yourself in other people is good. Sometimes you see the bad of yourself in other people and it makes you angry. Sometimes you see the good and it makes you kind of proud. So, I hope that this, interlacing of the good and the bad, that we see each other. There's a passage in the Bible that says, now we see each other darkly, like mirroring each other, right? Like by the people we love. The people we love, they make us very angry because we see ourselves in this and them. And they make us very happy because we see ourselves in that. This is the love of us seeing ourselves in each other, this connection. And one day we'll see face to face means, well, one day we'll know perfect love, right? So this it's very good that we see each other in each other, the good and the bad. It helps us humanize each other. And I really appreciate that. And next to talk on this, we have Johan. Go ahead, Johan.
Yeah, hey, yeah, I just wanted to point out or to say that looking for what the Islamic Republic needs to do to give reasons for US to go back to attacking, they already did all of that over decades. Everything that we can think of. There needs to be no more reasons for US to go at it again and fucking destroy them. And I think that is what is important to remember. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we are closed on this topic. And if there is no more super chat, we can move on to the next.
There's one super chat, and I was hoping maybe you or Jeffrey could respond to it. Is Jeffrey here? Okay, so Fleshy Interloper, thank you so much for the super chat, saying, "Are there more manpads coming on the Shadow Fleet?" So, what do you think, Jeffrey? You want to go first?
Wait, does he mean that we wouldn't use mad pads against elements of the regime?
I think no. I think no. I think he's saying if the CCP. So now that the blockade is removed and because there are shadow fleets coming from China towards Iran, and Fleshy Interloper is thinking if there are more manpads probably on those ships.
Almost assuredly. And you wouldn't have to use a shadow fleet. Putin's been rearming the regime remnants to the Caspian, as you rightly know, and pointed out. Thank God you and Goldie pointed that shit out. They can come across the border of Pakistan. There's all different kinds of ways. Manpads are not large. They're easily transportable. Those wouldn't matter. Manpads are not going to have any aircraft fly above the range or altitude where they, above their altitude. And that we can do. Like the United States and or Israel, because we would definitely back them up with intelligence, like satellite intelligence, would be able to fly their aircraft at altitude, which is well above anything a manpad could hit you with. And then still put a warhead right on a forehead because, our targeting is like second to none. So, yeah, now that's a very good point, though, right? So obviously the regime remnants is going to try and use different elements of this to reconstitute its capability, which is why those different lines of effort I mentioned is so critical. Recognizing His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi as the head of the official government in exile via the transitionary government, streamlining the legal gates so that way we can start sitting there and really flooding in track 2 material support, not the least of which is training up teams to liberate give letters of marque to those teams so that they can actually liberate very large oil tankers and then bring them to a country that's accommodating and then sell that on the market to our allies, deny it to our enemies, and deny the mullah regime the money that they could make to pay all that. So not only are you taking money away from the mullah regime, you're also giving money to the resistance. Yeah. That's called Operation Sovereign Tide, by the way.
I think it's a cool title. All right. I want to move on to the next topic then. This is from Wyatt. Could the single shot Liberator gun be used in Iran?
Yeah, the Liberator, it was a in World War II, they made the cheapest possible gun. They made, I think it was a 45, and they dropped it into France, airdropped it into France, and the French resistance used it, and it was a single shot. It failed because they went against the Germans, because the Germans had machine guns, and if you have a single shot against a machine gun, you're going to lose. But I was thinking about, like, with Iran, if we did something, made the cheapest possible gun, single shot, and basically they just used it to, go hunting deers and walking behind a deer, shoot them in the back or something. I wonder if that'd be useful, because, like I said, they just they drop like 1,000 at a time. They were cheap, crappy guns, but it's a good idea, or maybe not a good idea, but it's an idea. All right, that's it.
So given that Jeffrey is going to respond to this, I want to ask a question to Jeffrey to respond to both of them. I'm hearing that if the Iranian people get armed a little bit, especially with things that are not high tech and cheap, it might actually be more devastating. Like, if you want to arm them, you have to arm them good, and you have to arm them right, and you have to train them, and you have to give them high tech stuff. Some people, I don't know if this is true, they're saying that if you arm the Iranian people a little bit, or basically give them cheap stuff, this is the argument. They think the Islamic Republic, when they came out in early January and massacred the Iranian people, they didn't stop massacring the Iranian people because they thought, okay, let's not kill more people, because they would go to millions if they had to. They only stopped massacring the Iranian people because the Iranian people were retreating, and they're going back home. They will keep shooting until the resistance, stops. That's how long they will keep shooting. So their argument is that if you arm the Iranian people a little bit, or what you do is that they will keep fighting instead of going home, and the Islamic Republic will keep shooting, and instead of having, I don't know, 100,000 on your dead bodies, you're going to have 1,000,000 dead bodies. That's what's going to happen. So some people are saying, if you're going to arm the Iranian people, make sure it's something so complete and so high tech and in such high numbers that we're not going to get something like that happening. So yeah, what do you think, Jeffrey?
Both those. So with regards to, I'm going to touch on Wyatt. Then I don't want to say circle back because it's so dull. I'm going to swing to your question. So Ryan Macbeth actually mentioned this in his podcast about a month and a half ago. I actually talked, because a lot of people have floated the idea of the Liberator pistol, and there's like pluses and minuses to these different approaches. Sure, does it mean, like, a brave Iranian protester has the ability to at least put one bullet in some asshole Basij's body when he's trying to rape her in a fucking rape dungeon? Sure. Is it like how you'd probably want to arm Iranian resistance? Probably not. I don't know. There's like a lot of different issues with the Liberator. The overall premise, though, of arming Iranian people, so that's true. Like, you could, some of the ideas I've heard floated, including in this show, is providing some arms so that way you'd have like anti-mullah sniper teams, right? Like kind of like the good guy version of what happened in Montreal, right? So you have some ideas, as shitty as that sounds, right? I'm just saying because it's pertinent, right? That's what they're, just to put your head around it. So you have like an anti-mullah, a member of the anti-mullah regime resistance is like, they're holed up inside the cities is like snipers, just like the mullah regime had snipers. And if you have some besieged douchebag running around just gunning people down, they take a bullet to the forehead. Sure, there's issues with that. I mean, it's not like something you can just lickety-splickety do. If it was, I mean, you know my approach, right? I mean, that's a long-term approach, though. You're talking about 87 weeks of training, you know, probably take you a couple of months to even get the funding, unless it was directly funded, say, a US government or something. You could probably do that. That'd make it easier. So let's say you had all the funding ready to go. Training like the cadres are ready to go. 87 weeks. And after that, you have you'll have some of the most lethal combatants on the planet, sans Skynet or Delta Force in that order. That's true. And after that, the regime would be absolutely obliterated. That's true. That should be pursued no matter what. That said, right now, Iranian people are rightly, wanting to, there are signals coming out that they want to finish the job because they're tired of hurting. That's also true. So the question becomes, how do you provide material assistance to Iranian resistance in a manner that maximizes the amount of impact that they can have, with that impact defined as expediting the fall of the regime remnants with the least amount of blood and treasure amongst the Iranian resistance. We talked about how, like, what that would be, right? Like, you'd want to put things together if you were going to be saying no training whatsoever. We're just going to give them stuff so they're just not lambs to the slaughter. Or kind of like some of the routes. We've talked it on this show ad nauseum, haven't we, Armin? You have air, have potential air delivery, and even there's issues there. Company, you're talking about 37 pallets, 48,000 pounds, either two C-130Js or a C-5, C-17, something big. Yeah, that could give you enough for a company. If you're not using all the stuff there, you're just giving them stuff to, be good to be able to fight back in a street. So you probably get maybe 2 companies worth of stuff. Okay. Make sure they get it. I mean, that's the rub. How do you make sure the Iranian people get it? Or at least get enough of it so that whatever attrition you have vis-a-vis besiege, IRGC remnants, douchebags grabbing some of it, it doesn't matter. That's an issue. How do you get it to them? How do they know that it's coming, or where to be, at what time? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff there. Do I think that we should definitely arm the Iranian people? Yes. Because it just has to be done in the right way, which I don't want to go through too much of it on this show for any number of reasons. I don't want to see what happened in January again either. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be supporting Iranian resistance. We should just make sure that the attrition is not to that level. If it was up to me, I would just, bomb the shit out of the Mullah regime until they were dead, and then shit in their ashes and or brain jelly, because that's what they fucking deserve.
All right. Completely agreeing on that. It is a long training time, but I understand why Jeff wants this methodology. Like, I'm more about like separating the training into 3 groups so it's faster, like less than a year. But I get where he's coming from. Next on this topic, we have Richard. Richard, go ahead, please.
Quick update to what Jeffrey was talking about. I have confirmed with a contact in Montreal there has been a civilian killed in the terrorist attack. Michael Moshe Mizrahi was killed, they think, by police crossfire while he was trying to flee the scene. So may his memory be a blessing.
That's horrible. That's horrible. Our condolences go out to the families of all lost in this attack, and prayers go out to you. Yes, I mean, there is such a thing as getting caught in the crossfire. People get trained. This happens. This happens in the military. This happens in policing. It's a terrible thing. I would like to wait and see exactly what went down before we say we're certain which, where the shot came from. But we definitely 100% want to give our condolences to the family. And, let me put the other one. We really, really don't like this anti-Semitism, this terrorism. Terrorism is terrible. Never, ever, ever get into the mind space where you think that violent force should be used for political means. You shouldn't do that in any country. You should seek as much as you can, as long as you have the methods to go through the political system. Like in a place with Iran, like Iran, resistance goes to the streets because they have no other redress. They can't vote their way out of their situation. But in a place like Canada, in a place like I would say, well, UK is having a lot of problems, but they still have a system which they can vote. So always use that, even if you disagree with us and you have another stance. Never go to violence for political means or religious means. And with that, we go back to the topic. And next to speak on this topic of weapons and weapons drops, we have Noah. Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, I would personally, as an Iranian American, I would want Iranians to be armed with quality weapons, and not cheap weapons that can break really easily. That's just my 2 cents.
All right. Another thing about those weapons is I think some of them were for hunting. It was like a survival weapon, like you would try to hunt a deer if you found a rabbit or something. I'm not very sure, but it wasn't like it was kind of like a, I don't know if they sent it like that because it was like a sketchy situation for sending it.
My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.